My guys, Chad and Sam, were down in sunny Miami, Florida all weekend while I was here in cold, rainy Nashville. But it's all right because it's Monday. I'm Josh Newberg. This is the Inside Scoop. We're going to have a phenomenal show today. A lot of talk about what went down in Miami. I'm going to bring on national recruiting analyst Sam Spiegelman. Since Chad's on a flight home right now, it's just me and you. How you doing, Sam? Back from Miami?
Feeling a little bit of warmth in January. It's nice, but it's nice to start getting a look at the 2024s and 2025s. I feel like 2023 is just about over, so it's good to start looking ahead to next year's crop.
Yeah, we're going to close it out, but we have some big news to start off with in the 23 class. Five-star cornerback Cormani McClain finally does it. He flips his commitment from Miami to Colorado. This went down on Thursday night. He was on the Wallow and Gilly show or on their Instagram. I'm not exactly sure how he announced it, but he announces that he's flipping his commitment. He does not sign. He can't do that until February 1st at the earliest. But 2 years in a row, Deion Sanders lands the #1 cornerback in America. Travis Hunter, Cormani McClain, do you think, you've seen Cormani McClain for the last couple of years, do you think Cormani McClain can come in and start next year besides Travis Hunter in that secondary?
Now, I'm not the biggest Cormani McClain fan. I'm not from Florida, and every time I've seen him in in-person evaluations, there is some room for him to clean up his game, but the physical skill set is there. You know, the natural physical attributes that and being coached by Deion Sanders. I do think that Deion's recruiting him to play opposite of Travis Hunter. And for the second year in a row, he gets Travis Hunter, who is committed to Florida State, his alma mater, and then he flips Cormani McClain, committed to Miami. So whoever Billy Napier gets committed in the secondary in 2024, you have to look out for prime time. He's coming for the Sunshine State. But yeah, I think Cormani McClain, we saw the writing on the wall. He finally made it out to Boulder. I think it's a great connection to have him and Deion. I think from a personality standpoint and then a positional development standpoint. And I don't think any of us are surprised to see that he ended up in Boulder, but the road getting there was certainly rocky, to say the least.
Yeah, this is the biggest commitment for Colorado since they landed the #1 running back in America, five-star Darrell Scott. That was in the year 2008. Darrell Scott was one spot behind Julio Jones, who's still playing. Darrell Scott didn't have the greatest career at Colorado, actually transferred out, ended his career at USF. So we'll see if this goes much better. McClain comes in ranked as the #1 cornerback on the On3 consensus and the 12th best player overall. Big pickup for Deion. You know, the 2023 class still hasn't ended yet. They go from number 39 in the player rankings to number 31 in the 5th best in the Pac-12. So Deion Sanders still making some waves, and there's about a week and a half to go until signing day. So before we get to the 2024 stuff, there was one other major development, and that came with four-star quarterback Jaden Rashada. On Friday, he gets his official release from his UF NLI, so he's no longer tied to UF at all. He visits Arizona State over the weekend. Sam, what are you hearing coming out of that Arizona State visit for Jaden Rashada?
Well, we know about Arizona State. Head coach Kenny Dillingham was the offensive coordinator at Oregon when they were recruiting Rashada, and at one point, Oregon may or may not have been trending for the West Coast quarterback before he ultimately committed to Miami, then flipped to Florida, getting to where we are now. Then enter TCU. That's a team that we didn't talk about last week on the show. We had heard more Pac-12 West Coast teams like Arizona State and Colorado and even Washington and Cal. But throw TCU into the mix. TCU, which just made it to the college football playoff, engaging in talks with the Rashada camp. Max Duggan just went to the NFL. We know that the guy he replaced, Chandler Morris, is still the presumptive favorite with Kendall Briles coming in. But that seems to be like an open quarterback competition. And for Jaden Rashada, who is now basically going through his recruitment with a blank slate, he's looking at opportunities to get to the field early, check the box for TCU there, and then other off-the-field possibilities. TCU has that in Grove. So I think TCU might be the team to watch moving forward.
Yeah, Pete Nakos of On3 confirmed the TCU visit will happen next weekend. That's the last weekend before the February 1st signing day. We don't know right now if Jaden Rashada is expected to sign on that February 1st signing date or take it into the rest of the month. He has really until April 1st for that signing period to close. We'll see what happens there. Let's take a look at the updated top 10 for the 2023 class. We have a little bit of a change due to Jaden Rashada falling out of UF's class and Cormani McClain doing the same. The top stays the same. Alabama, UGA, Texas, Ohio State, LSU slips into the 5th spot. Miami at 6 now, Oklahoma 7, Notre Dame 8, Oregon 9, and now Tennessee is in at the 10 spot where UF slips to 12. But we'll see what happens. We got another week and a half until the final 2023 signing day. All right, Sam, now it's your time to shine. You were down in Miami for the Battle 7-on-7. Was this really the first big 7-on-7 of the offseason?
Always is. Miami is always the number one stop. And as we kind of see that there's less and less kids signing in this February signing day, you have to start getting an early jump and looking at these 2024s and 2025 cycle.
All right. And the top performers from the Battle 7-on-7, on 3 MVP Julian Sayin committed to Alabama. The quarterback out of California. At number 2, 2025 wide receiver Dakorien Moore. Number 3, 5-star wide receiver JoJo Trader. Number 4, 2025 wide receiver Jamie French. 5, cornerback Ellis Robinson. Quite the list here. We're going to get into Julian Sayin in a minute, but tell me what you liked about some of these guys in the top 5.
Yeah, let's start right at the top with the on-3 MVP. Julian, this is my first evaluation of Julian, a West Coast quarterback you only have heard about from different coaches over the last couple of months. So going in, I'm expecting a thin, smooth armed quarterback, and Julian Sayin came in with the body type of an Alabama quarterback, and he threw like an Alabama quarterback. It kind of met and exceeded expectations. He throws with twitch. He doesn't hesitate. He throws his receivers open. He can put some oomph on it, and he can take some off, and that balance really impressed me. And I thought they advanced to the semifinals of the 7-on-7 tournament, but he did enough to definitely capture MVP honors. Talk about
Hold on, a little bit more on
Julian
Sayin before we move on. What did you learn? Sure. You said this was the first time you really saw him in person. What did you learn about him in terms of his leadership as a quarterback?
Yeah, well, 7-on-7 is unique because you aren't playing with your high school receivers and tight ends and running backs. You are playing with a group of very talented other kids in your class or your classes, and you're developing chemistry on the run. And he found a really big hybrid wide receiver tight end, KJ Doss out of New York City, he kind of Alabama has big tight ends. They have big receivers. He took advantage of his weapons on the outside. I just thought even when the time is winding down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, they have to get rid of the ball. It's part of the game in 7-on-7 to keep it moving. Sayin took his time in the pocket, and then he rifled it out as quick of a release as a Jackson Arnold or one of the better 2023 quarterbacks that we just watched. And he gets the ball out. He's authoritative with his throws. I like his anticipation. I like where he's able to put the ball even when receivers are open, because look at the other DBs we're talking about here with Josiah Trader and Ellis Robinson. These are elite DBs he's playing against. You have to be perfect to be an on-3 MVP. And I thought Sayin he wasn't perfect. He threw some picks, but he impressed in this setting, which is really hard to do for a quarterback, in my opinion.
Now, I know in terms of his recruitment, he still has a lot of teams coming after him. What did he say about his commitment to Alabama?
Everything he said was all things Alabama. We know the story that he examined a couple of other SEC schools before he ultimately committed to Bama in the fall. But, I think Bama is still going to look around for other quarterbacks from what I understand. And I think Julian, while he is still, comfortably committed to the Tide, I think he's going to also keep the lines of communication open just in case something were to happen. But I think Alabama has found its guy, and I know that he'll probably be in Tuscaloosa a few times, getting to know whoever Alabama taps as their OC, and we'll see how that connection grows.
All right, guys, do me a favor right now. Like and subscribe to this video. Subscribe to the On3 YouTube page. We have a ton of college football content every day, every week, right here at On3. Do me a favor and hit subscribe right now if you're watching this video. All right, Sam, also making the list, 4-star corner Charles Lester, 4-star Mississippi athlete Daniel Hill, 4-star cornerback Jalen Thompson, 4-star cornerback Zabian Brown, and like you said, LSU QB commitment Colin Hurley. Tell me who else stood out to you.
Yeah, let's go back to Dakorien Moore, the 2025 receiver. He's ranked number 2 at his position in the country. I think he's going to stay there. I think he's a stock up guy. I saw him play in the state championship last month, caught a 60 some odd yard touchdown catch. And then and he had the catch of the weekend over in Battle Miami. And with time expiring, caught a catch with the cornerback, basically had his helmet where his head in his chest. And, you have pads on. That's a really hard catch. And Dakorien still came down with it. He was smooth all weekend. He's going to visit Oregon this weekend, which is a big visit for a Dallas area wide receiver. Josiah Trader also had one of those, jaw-dropping catches in this. He's speedy, he's smooth, he's athletic. In my opinion, he reminds me a little bit of Devontae Smith and the fact that I think he could be as good of a cornerback as he could be a receiver. And he's a really good receiver, and I like how the ball skills might translate to defense. Nonetheless, Josiah Trader is wanted by all the main schools in the country, but it feels like Miami might have a little bit of an edge with the hometown kid. Ellis Robinson is a cornerback. I think a prototype you drop in a lab, and he played like that all weekend. I was so impressed by this cornerback. About 6'1", 185 pounds. He moves effortlessly, turns, closes on the ball. He had a fantastic weekend. Alabama and Georgia seemed like the heavyweights there, and he was rocking his Georgia gloves, and apparently he always does that. But hey, you got to read between the lines here. And then real quickly, Daniel Hill out of Mississippi. He's an on 300 athlete. He's playing running back at 6'2" and 220 pounds. He jumped probably 35, 40 inches about 4 or 5 times. He's like a jump ball aficionado. Really impressive. He's an Alabama lean, but he's going to go visit South Carolina this weekend, which is a big visit. He saw them play against the Vols earlier this season. And then Colin Hurley, like we talked about earlier, is an LSU quarterback commit. Reclassified, picked LSU over, some of the heavyweights like Ohio State and Alabama and Miami and Florida State. Hurley has one of the livest arms, he's really a 2025 and he can sling it. Didn't have the best weekend overall as far as, team advancing to the semifinals or anything, but I thought the way he was chucking the ball, he throws with great anticipation. He sees the field really well, and he barely has to put any effort into launch at 50 yards, which I think is incredible. So he's a top performer, and he's someone that LSU is going to love to mold, and I think he's pretty locked in with the Tigers right now too.
Last guy I want to ask you about before we move on from the tournament is 4-star cornerback Charles Lester. He's an in-state guy from the state of Florida, the Sarasota area, who is receiving national interest. Is he another top Florida guy that we're going to see leave the state, or can the Big Three hold on to him?
Well, that's a really great question. And not only was he a top performer, he has one of the more interesting recruitments going on. Last weekend, he went to Florida and Florida State. Look at both those schools. Mike Norvell, what he's doing with Florida State really captured his attention. Corey Raymond is one of the better defensive back coaches in the country, and he's trying to keep him real close to home in Gainesville. He was really high on Georgia, and he's going to go visit Clemson, which recently offered for the first time this weekend. Right now, I'm torn between the in-state schools, depending on how this Clemson visit goes. But I like where Florida and Florida State sit. Maybe Georgia in the top 3 with this Clemson visit on deck.
All right, we'll see if the in-state schools can hold on to Charles Lester, or will the Bama and Georgias of the world come in and take him. We'll see. One more bit of scoop that I wanted to cover before we get out of here is 4-star wide receiver Arian Hampton out of Dangerfield, Texas. He tipped his hand a little bit. He named a leader, the number 11 ranked wide receiver in the country, 59th best player overall. Named a leader. Sam, tell us about it.
Yeah, Aaron Hampton out of East Texas wore his Alabama Crimson Tide gloves. He visited there earlier in January, and he said that they are right now currently leading. This is Aaron Hampton, a top 60 player in the 2024 class, one time committed to the Texas Longhorns. That ended during the fall. He named Alabama the leader. He's going to visit Oregon this weekend. Oregon, we know Josh has been making a big push with Texas kids. But Alabama signed Jalen Hale out of East Texas. So Hallman Wiggins has been forming this relationship with Hampton for some time. And I think that Alabama's in a good spot. I put an RPM in. LSU is also in it. Texas has kept dialogues open, but I like where Alabama stands with Hampton.
All right. That's the battle 7-on-7. Sam, how many more 7-on-7s do you think you'll hit before even summer starts?
Ooh, that's a great question. If you ask me, maybe one a month. If you ask my wife, we're all good for until January. next year. I mean,
all right, moving on. No more 7-on-7. We're talking Cam Pringle, the #1 offensive tackle in the 2024 class. He committed to South Carolina on Sunday. Cam Pringle ranked the #1 offensive tackle in America. South Carolina also has a shot at the #5 offensive tackle in America, Josiah Thompson. Recruiting prediction machine shows 90% to South Carolina. So they got a little something cooking right now, Sam. South Carolina with the top 10 2024 class. Let's take a look at who is in the top 10 right now. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, the usuals. Notre Dame at #4, Louisville at 5, 6 Florida, 7 Florida State, 8 South Carolina, 9 LSU, and 10 Michigan State. But South Carolina might not be done yet. 4-star Georgia linebacker Wendell Gregory is also trending in their direction. We'll see. South Carolina kind of hot on the trail right now, Sam, in 2024.
This is a credit to Shane Beamer. If you look at some of our content on On3, we can tell you that South Carolina signed one of the more surprising classes in the entire country this year. I think it's their highest class in more than half a decade. Shane Beamer is a youthful coach with a ton of energy, and he is a players-led coach. You know, you get the feel, and you see that not only on the recruiting trail, which we are seeing with good high school recruits, but you're seeing it in the transfer portal. And you look at some of the coaches having success turning around programs. They're doing it like an NFL front office. They're recruiting well. They're getting ready to go veteran players through the portal. And Shane Beamer has South Carolina clicking at this point. It's showing on the recruiting trail. They're locking down their own state, which always has plenty of talent. And they're also, they're hitting Texas. They're hitting parts of the Southeast. They're hitting Georgia. Shane Beamer has this thing together, and I don't see any reason why South Carolina will slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, and they might not even be done in 2023. I was sleeping on Nicholas Harbor to South Carolina because he took one of his first official visits there. I thought, they're getting him on campus awfully early, but here we are about a week and a half from National Signing Day, February 1st, and 2023 5-star athlete Nicholas Harbor is still out there and possibly trending to South Carolina. So yes, Beamer doing an incredible job right now acquiring talent for that roster. Sam, thanks for joining us today on the Inside Scoop. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. Hopefully that sunburn kind of wears off a little bit. I'm jealous. Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.